In this video, I'm going to tell you about my current relationship with Games Workshop and their, products. This is going to be more of a sit and chat with Uncle Adam kind of video, but I'm trying to hopefully inform you so you can make some decisions on your own. I'll probably get called a shill for this, or the newer term I think is simp, is what the kids are saying. But whatever. I've been doing this long enough that I've been called all kinds of things, and I just wanted to talk about why I'll probably never totally quit Games Workshop. Now, there are a lot of qualifiers in that statement, which is also technically the title of the video. Words like probably and totally certainly leave some wiggle room, which is fine. Only a Sith deals in absolutes, which ironically kind of sounds like an absolute. The point is that I will probably always buy and use some things from Games Workshop, but the number of those things is definitely dwindling. I've had people ask recently why I don't focus on the big games anymore, like Age of Sigmar and, Warhammer 40,000. And it's no kind of a boycott or anything like that. I'm just not particularly interested in most of the games that Games Workshop is currently selling. Warhammer 40,000 and Age of Sigmar, because army-size games are just not really my interest area. I'm not particularly right now interested in having to push around 50, 60, 70 miniatures just on my side, play on a huge 4x6 or whatever size board, all that kind of stuff. Now, admittedly, I know there's going to be some in the comments that's like, yeah, but if you play this army, you can get 2,000 points for only 17 models. But I'm just not interested in playing with those models or against those types of models right now in what I like to wargame. Necromunda, the reason I'm not super interested in that game these days is because it's kind of drowning in books. They keep just putting out more and more and more books, and some you need and some you don't, and some you don't know. That all being said, I love the models and the terrain. The models are spectacular for kit bashing. I use them all the time. The terrain can be used, frankly, for any kind of weird dystopian science fiction game, which is most of them, strangely. So Kill Team, that's that. And then, Necromunda, that's that. And then Kill Team, well, I've talked a good deal about Kill Team in the past. Pachow. I don't need to go through it all again. That all being said, I'm going to eventually finish up my Orc Commandos that came in the Octarius box. I already finished the Terrain and the Death Corps of Krieg. And then in my opinion, that's just going to become a box game. Like, by itself, not bringing any of the compendium stuff and all that, it's actually not terrible. I'm just going to need to go through the rule book and change all those little symbols to numbers, because the symbols, I don't like them. And then there's Warcry. I love Warcry currently. You can actually see last week's video with Sam Lenz. He and I sat here in the studio and talked about that. Talked about the Tome of Champions and all that kind of stuff. Pachow. But if you didn't see that video, I mentioned in that video that I think that Games Workshop is going to come out with a new version of Warcry this summer 2022. Now, Sam, he didn't think so. And honestly, I really, really, really hope he's right. We actually made a bet. He said, hey, I'll bet you $5 they don't. And I really hope that I'm going to be paying him $5, because I don't think the game could obviously, all games could use some tweaking and stuff like that, but that's what things like the Tome of Champions is for. And so I don't want to see a new one this summer, but if they go that way, we'll see what happens. Then besides the models and the games, there's other stuff that they do obviously as well, like the lore. I have never been a super big lore person as far as Games Workshop is concerned. I love some of the Black Library books. About every year or so, year and a half, I go through and listen to all of Eisenhorn and all of Ravnor again, those Inquisitor stories written by Dan Abnett. It was the Inquisitor and their retinue doing all kinds of stuff and everything like that. Love both of those. I really love the beginning books, like the first 4 books in the Horus Heresy, and there's little pieces here and there that I also dig and like to read, but nowadays I listen to them while I'm painting, on Audible and stuff, and but that's about as far as I go. I don't watch a lot of lore videos. I watch once in a while here and there, just for things that might pique my interest, but in general, I've never been a big lore person. Now, their paints, Games Workshop's paints, I honestly don't really use any of their paints these days. The opaque ones, I barely use any of them. For some skin tones, Kislev Flesh, I'm still really kind of stuck on that one for very specific kind of like sponging on rust on the corners of stuff. Scrag Brown is pretty awesome, and I like that. But their contrasts and their washes, they get used on pretty much every model I paint. So those are going to be something that I'm going to be continuing to buy from Games Workshop for a very long time. I use not all of the contrasts, because there's some colors I just don't find myself using all that much. But Skeleton Horde, Snakebite Leather, Agros Dunes, Wildwood. Admittedly, those are all browns, but there's other colors as well. A lot of the greens. The red, Blood Angels Red is spectacular. And the washes, there's the Holy Trinity, of course, where you got your Seraphim Sepia, you got your Agrax Earthshade, and you got your Nuln Oil. Those will probably always, if you've ever been watching me on Twitch, they're always sitting on my table somewhere in the frame, and I use them on pretty much every project. Now the question becomes, why should anyone care what I like or dislike in Games Workshop, what I'm still buying, what I'm not? I'm trying to teach people that this hobby is not a zero-sum hobby. It's not binary. It's not that you either buy and play Games Workshop stuff or you don't. You can mix and match game systems and models and terrain and paints and lore and all kinds of things. And I've heard some hot takes lately on Twitter from people saying that Games Workshop is a monopoly, which is not true. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to defend a huge multi-billion-dollar corporation. That's not how it works. But they're huge in the industry, absolutely. But there are so many other games and models and 3D models and paints and terrain companies out there, more than there ever have been before, and you can choose from any of them. The important thing to take away from this is that you should definitely vote with your wallet. If you are unhappy about something that a big multinational, company is doing, not just Games Workshop, but any old company, that you should stop buying their products. I'm currently doing that with Activision Blizzard. I loved Diablo 2 back in the day, and I really want to buy and play the new remaster, which is, I think, called Diablo 2 Resurrected, something like that. But I just won't. I won't buy it until they properly address all of the sexual discrimination and harassment, workers' rights, and all that stuff. Get rid of their CEO, all that stuff. I know they got bought by Microsoft, but none of that stuff's been touched on really yet. And that CEO's still working. So I'd love to play the game. I really would, but I can't. Not in good conscience. So I can't buy it. But that being said, I did pick up a game that is kind of comparable called Grim Dawn that I got on Steam. Got that instead, which actually scratches nearly the same itch that Diablo 2 did, plus it makes some things actually quite a bit better. So going back over those qualifiers in the title, the probably would only change if Games Workshop as a company did something that went way over the line for me, like the Activision Blizzard thing, and what they've done. There are a lot of folks out there that are angry about the recent price hikes from Games Workshop, and I can totally understand why. However, we do live in capitalism, and these little toys and paints and all that stuff are a luxury item, and it's not a monopoly, and so they can set the prices where they want. And I then can vote with my wallet and just buy less from them, or maybe nothing at all. And the totally part depends upon how much of their product stays the way that I like it. If Warcry changes drastically for the worse, in my opinion, in a new edition, then I gotta be honest, I'll find something else by somebody else that I like to play more. If they change the formulation of their contrast or their washes, or both their contrast and their washes, then I'm going to end up having to find something else from someone else that works how I like it, or maybe even potentially mix my own. There's, Lord knows, plenty of videos out there about how to make your own washes, make your own contrasts. Maybe that's the road I got to go down. Brand loyalty is a terrible idea designed by marketing people to get you to buy just their stuff. Because of the nature of tabletop gaming, you can mix bits and pieces, paints and brushes, rules, and more to play the kind of games that you want to play. I'll certainly continue to have some Games Workshop stuff in the mix because of the bits that I currently like Warcry, Necromunda models for kit bashing, contrast paints, washes, all that kind of stuff. But I'm always looking for new ways to vote with my wallet.